You're listening to the Armchair GM Sports Network.
This is Rod Mahood, your in-game voice of the Niagara IceDogs, and you're listening to the Dog Pound Podcast on the Armchair GM Sports Network, your podcast source for all game analysis, team interviews, and up-to-date news regarding the Niagara IceDogs.
Perlini! Overtime! IceDogs win! They score! Verhage was also jamming away. It's a power play goal for the IceDogs. And they score! Hosang, first goal as an IceDog. Strom stops Shipley. Richie scores! Gets it to Akil Thomas. Thomas has the angle coming in. He scores!
Welcome into another episode of the Dog Pound Podcast, the official podcast of your Niagara IceDogs, proudly brought to you by Global Pet Foods, where pets are undeniably part of the family in all four of their great Niagara region locations. Barrie, Caputo and Cam Halbert are with you to discuss the IceDogs' recent northern road trip, going 3-0 up in the Soo, Sudbury and North Bay. We're going to react to who's been hot. We're going to talk about the updated standings going into their final games before they hit the Christmas break. Some big games coming up. We'll also hear quickly from IceDogs head coach Ben Boudreau for Inside the Coaches Room, wrapping up the weekend. As well, we'll talk about just general thoughts on where the team is right now, as they've hit 20 wins so far on the OHL season. They haven't even hit Christmas yet. It's pretty incredible to think about. But make sure to give us a follow on X at Dog Pound Podcast. Stay up to date with all of our IceDogs coverage. As well, you can give us a follow on Facebook, Instagram, and on our YouTube channel by searching the Armchair GM Sports Network. Thank you to everybody watching today on the video version on YouTube. Make sure to hit like, hit subscribe, and smash that bell. And thank you to those listening on your favorite on-demand audio platform. So with that said, Cam, it's been quite the last stretch of games for the IceDogs here after what was a turbulent November for sure, where they went 500. But this team's record in the last little bit has been very encouraging as they hit the break. And obviously the trade deadline and everything like that going around, if the IceDogs are going to be sellers or buyers come the early January. But right now, for them to be at 20 wins before they hit Christmas for a team that only won 17 games all last year, it's been definitely nice to see the team and some individual players garnering some national attention.
Absolutely. I mean, to be honest, the 7-game road trip we kind of talked about as kind of the not breaking point, it's not the right word, but the point at which it will be determined whether they'll be buyers, whether that's small or large, or sellers. Again, probably more on the smaller end because it looks like their competition window is starting to open up. And I need to start by saying it's just an incredible turnaround year over year for the IceDogs. Obviously, every team goes through rebuilds and the tough years. You're seeing Peterborough go through it right now. But the stark turnaround that we've seen this year is pretty incredible. I mean, we talked about it a number of times that this team only won 17 games last year, and now they've already hit 20 before the Christmas break. And they started this 7-game road trip off a perfect 3-0. Which is, pretty incredible in that they've got 2 more games on the road before the Christmas break against Barrie, which is an absolutely massive one, obviously a division rival. But this game matters, I think, again, the most on this road trip because it's really going to determine a few things in terms of what this team can really do. And then they've finish it off against Brampton on the 20th before they get that Christmas break, and then they do the Michigan trip with Flint and Saginaw on the 28th, 29th before being back home finally for New Year's Eve. But just a fantastic season. And now it's funny. One of the things that we've heard Ben say just over and over and over again is that team success brings individual success. And, a very simple statement, but you've heard the players when we interview them reiterate that over and over again. So it's not just a throwaway line for a vignette at the beginning of the season or anything like that. It clearly states that, they were really drilling that into them. And my goodness, are we seeing some individual accolades and like you mentioned, national media attention for some of these players. But more importantly, it's not just Ryan and Kevin anymore. And I think that having those two really carry the load during the dark times of Niagara, we talked about that once you start seeing players get drafted or get invites and things like that, it breeds internal competition as well and starts to bring out the best in some of the other players. And man, we talked about it at the beginning of the season, the X factor of the entire year and the player that could have the biggest impact year over year for the IceDogs is Ethan Zada. And my goodness, over the last month and a half, we've really seen that. Because last season, maybe a bit of a disappointment offensively, but we saw his tenacity and ability to play a little bit more defensive and penalty kill and those roles. But he's very physical when he needs to be. But now we're starting to see that offensive flair. And he's over a point per game, which I don't even think that we anticipated. I think I put the line at like 50 points. Season would be a pretty incredible one. And he's well on pace to smash that. So just starting with him, Zada's been fantastic, highlighted by that 5-point game last night against Sudbury, including a hat trick. Also, great celly on that. The spin around on the knees, like just a hilariously fun and good way to end it. But he has been such a treat to watch, and I think that he starts to give the lineup a bit of it makes it interesting. I'll say that because I don't think we anticipated, much like the rest of the IceDogs, what they'd be able to do this year because of his impact.
No, we'll start with Zada because he's obviously the guy that is turning the most heads right now, and a guy that coming into the season was on the central scouting list but was a projected 6th, 7th round pick. Well, I think since that list came out and we've really seen Ethan Zada turn it up to another level. I mean, I've got his player stats up on the board for you guys watching on the video version. His last 8 games has been incredible. A goal and assist, 4-point night, 2 assists, 2 goals, a 5-point night. So in total, that's 9, 13, 14, 16 points in his last 8 games for Ethan Zada. It's and including that 5-point night, which helps a lot. But again, it's not like he just has one major performance here and there. Over the entire, we'll get into the road trip stats as a whole, but I mean, he's continuing to put up numbers again in the second line role right now with Rubrick and Blake Aerosmith, who was in and out of the lineup. We had Matthew Paris's return as well, which we'll kind of talk about there. But as far as the lineup structure, they've gotten all of their forwards back at their disposal now, and this is something we've waited for all season long when Asadorian and Paris would come back, how everything would kind of fall into place. And now that we've kind of seen it for at least a few games up in the north there on the road trip, it's definitely encouraging to say that, whether if they stay put at the deadline, I don't think that is going to be something that fans are going to look at and be disappointed about, because I think we've said all year that this team is kind of shooting above what their expectation was coming into the year, where they were hoping to be that 7th, 8th playoff team, and for them to be in this spot scenario already when their window is still a couple years open. I don't think that we're going to see many major moves, or really they shouldn't, because we've seen these players show that this lineup can compete with the best of them. You talk about Barrie coming up for the division lead in the Central, and the Central is going to be a dogfight, because when Brampton gets all their players back, they're missing 11 players right now, and I think this is a good time for the IceDogs to play them this week. But when they get everybody back from the World Juniors, they got Martone and Ivan Kovic and all those guys, Carson Rakoff going, in the second half, I expect Brampton to really take off. So if we're looking at the Central Division as a possible goal here, Barrie is still the team to beat, but Brampton is a team that you look at and say they're not completely out of it yet. And the East still has some very good teams up there, like Oshawa and the Brantfords. Like there's solid teams up there. So I still believe that the IceDogs have a long-term goal here and understand that they're continuing to build and seeing the process here come to fruition, even though it might be a little bit ahead of schedule.
Well, absolutely. But I think that we talked about this on our last monthly show, or going into this road trip in this month specifically, that the expectations after a kind of a rough November in terms of month over month from October being so good, where they led, basically since the start of the season, they went 6 weeks of leading the entire Eastern Conference, not just the division. Obviously, after a little bit of a tough November, wasn't catastrophic by any means. I mean, I think they went 1 game under 500. I think the expectation was get a home playoff series in round 1. Right, I think that's something that realistically the team should aim for, and I think the team is good enough based on their performance right now that they can easily hit, especially because Brampton has had a really disappointing start to the season. But like you mentioned, that they are, they're 3 points up on 9th place, and there's no way that even when this team is going to miss the playoffs. Right. That being said, it'll be interesting when everyone comes back and they push all their chips in. How high they're going to climb. I would guess that Sudbury is the team that falls down quite a bit and would fall out of that. But you also have Brantford as well, who's getting healthier. And when they get their full complement of teams too, or full of players, like it's going to be tough. Like there's a couple teams that have a real shot at 3, 4, and 5 in the conference, and the Ice Dogs are one of them. And like you alluded to, I think that the best thing for the season would be to not make any moves. We've talked about it quite a bit. Obviously when you look at it, I don't know how many teams are going to beat Barrie and Oshawa, just because they're loaded with NHL talent, right? But the Ice Dogs have proven that they can beat either of those teams, especially Oshawa. But in a 7-game series next year, I think is the beginning of the go all in. And we have to give credit to the scouting staff, because over the last 2 years, they've gotten Rubric, who is a slam dunk. At this point, I mean, I don't think this is outlandish to say that he looks like he might be a top 3 pick in the NHL next year. Like, he is legitimately built like Porter Martone. And it's the same situation. He's an late birthday. So he's always going to have that little bit of a leg up because he's played an extra season over some of the players that were born, obviously, before that. So he's obviously going to have a little bit. But it's not just, he is not a small, skilled winger. He is gigantic for his age. He's 6'4". So, and he's 17. So, when his draft year comes, like, there's a real shot that he gets into the top 3. And now Ethan Zada, they listed him when the first round of Central Scouting came out, that he was like 6th, 7th round, right? And I was happy that he was on there because, again, Niagara has gone through a lot of rough stretches. Maybe not as many teams pay attention, things like that. But that's not the case. He was listed on there. Now, I'd be stunned if he doesn't go in the 5th. Again, Zada has something a little bit over Kevin, and that's just a little bit of size. And, Kevin's an unbelievable skater, and I think that he fell to the 4th round. That was kind of surprising in my opinion. But nonetheless, I think Zada can get into the 5th round. And then you've got Brady Wassland, who's still currently leading the league as a rookie scorer, right? Playing on the first line with Loshko and Kevin He, right? And not looking out of place. They had Max Creed up there for a long stretch of time too. And I think that was not a detriment to his development. I think it was great for it, but obviously wasn't really ready for that in this landscape of this team, because they're going up against the number 1 line on every night. And I think that putting Max in that position every night, I don't know if he's ready for. I bet you any money we have the same conversation that we had about Zada, about Max Crete next year, is that I bet you any money that Max goes from 30 points in his rookie season to 50 in his second season, right? Something along those lines, especially with the grittiness. He's getting more confident with body, but got to give credit to the scouting staff, because getting 4 impact players over 2 years is what really saves a franchise. And, they've done a great job, and credit to Wes and the management team as well. Aerosmith's a point per game player. He's got 7 points in 7 games so far, and I think that's flown under the radar as well. And he competes. He plays really hard. So obviously it's always tough that we always do deals with London, and it always seems that we have to overpay when it comes to trading with London. I'll say this though: the one thing that's good about trading with London is out of the conference. You play them twice a year, and you won't have to meet them until the final of the OHL championship, right? So it's really of no detriment. If they were making trades all the time like that, where they're having to give extra picks and high picks, to Kingston or Sudbury, like that has a lot more weight because you got to see them 5 times a season. So I think that's something to keep in mind. But the Ice Dogs have gone through years, and it was deserved for the most part, of not the best management and some bad vibes overall. That's completely changed. The culture of the team is far different. The view of the team, not just from inside and its fan base and everything like that, but from a national perspective, just an OHL perspective. They're no longer treated as the bottom tier. And if they are, it won't last much longer, because again, this 3-game road trip where they're 3-0 already, 21 goals in 3 games, and everyone's healthy. I think that's the thing. They don't, when someone gets hurt like Matthew Paris, a lot of people in the league maybe don't pay attention to something like that. But now it slots everyone into the right spot, and the team is just humming.
And for in full transparency, when I'm traveling around, for the road games, things like that, it used to be people coming up to me and saying, "What's going on with the Ice Dogs?" in a negative manner, and now when people are coming up to me, they're saying, "What's going on with the Ice Dogs?" and it's in a positive manner, and there's that negative stigma is starting to kind of leave what's kind of been there the last 3 or 4 years, and it's just nice to see for us for covering it. Nice to see as far as the national attention. It's nice to see the players getting the attention as well, which is a reflection of everything that we're doing as well. So it's always nice, and it spirals down to every sort of part of the organization when things are going well like they are right now at 29-1-1. It's been a dream start for the team, and they've got a whole second half of the year ahead of them. But I think that's the other thing that Ben Boudreau makes sure that he keeps his team focused on the moment. He wants them to celebrate wins and things like that, but knows that they're not satisfied. Their goal is to make the playoffs. Their goal is to continue to build this organization. I think what the coaching staff has done with Dan Paille, Mark Slauson, and head coach Ben Boudreau can't be understated, of getting these guys to buy in after such a negative losing culture the last 2 or 3 seasons, especially for the guys that have been here, like the Floreses, the Hees, and those kind of, even Andrew Wysick's been through all of it. And then, like you mentioned, the management staff going out and making the trades in the offseason to revamp the decor. So I think the coaching staff deserves a lot of credit as well in getting them to buy in to play that team system, because we see when they play it, they have success on more times than not, and when they don't, we see a team kind of look like they had the last 2 years. So it's trying to keep them in the moment and trying not to make sure that their heads don't get too big of the moment, and seeing the power rankings and things like that, and making sure that they're still coming in and doing all the right things on a daily basis.
Absolutely. And I think that something that's impressive is that their first 10, 15 games of the season, any team can have a stretch like that in the OHL for the most part. The impressive part to me was that, you'd see them win games or come back, and they weren't winning the games where they get up 3-0 and then hold on to the lead and play boring. They weren't doing that. And I've said this a number of times that they need to learn how to win because they just aren't used to it. Like, that's the reality of the situation. They just weren't used to winning. And how November went, when we had, trying to remember, that Barrie or that Erie game where they got Matthew Shaford, they got a real reminder of how good that team is, and that they need to play at the top of their game, and they can't just rely on Owen in net or Ryan or Kevin to kind of carry the load. You saw them bounce back in a way over the last 10 games specifically. I mean, they're 5-0-1 right now in their last 6 games, right?
Right.
And I think that it's impressive that when a team that's so used to losing comes out and wins, and there was a lot of come from behind wins we talked about, it's not sustainable, but then they start losing again. And then it's like, does that old mentality kind of creep in? Like, here we go again. They stopped it, So this is just simply a different squad, right? I still hope that a playoff round will fix the attendance. I would love to see the fans take notice. And I don't blame, again, I think that over the course of 3 seasons, it was probably a fatigue of just like the team hasn't been performing. And that happens in years of rebuilding. But I think that now, if you spend $20 to go watch a game, like you're gonna get your money's worth on any given night, whether they win or lose. Like, they are gonna battle, and it is entertaining. And you've got some of the best players in the OHL. You've got 2 of the top 4 goal scorers in the entire Ontario Hockey League on the Niagara IceDogs. I mean, when was the last time that happened? Ryan and Kevin, which quietly Ryan has had a more offensive, better season than Kevin He. I think that's very quiet until now. I think you're really starting to see again, you'd mentioned national media attention. You're starting to see some OHL coverage of Ryan Rober being like, man, do you see this kid? And again, it's probably because if this was his draft year, he would be mentioned a lot more on TSN and things like that. But because he's not even in the draft pool this season, next season's going to be crazy if he keeps this up. Like, it's going to be, like I said, it wouldn't surprise me if he's in the running for top 3. Like, I don't see many differences between him and Porter Martone. Just based on their play style and things like that, right? I think Porter might be a little bit more flashy, whereas Ryan just loves to unleash his shot a lot. But they both have a little bit of an edge. They're both big, not scared to use the body, and they're both gifted offensively. So that being said, it's just been a lot more fun this season, and that's my only thing is once the casual fans start to realize that this team is no longer in the basement, I think that you're going to start seeing the Meridian Center fill up. We've heard it from around the league, man. The Meridian Center is one of the best arenas and best nights out in the OHL. And, I think it's just going to be a lot more fun, because you can tell when there's 4,000, 4,000 plus in the arena and when there's only 2,500, like it's noticeable. But once the fans start coming in, I think his team's going to explode at home even more than they already have.
What do you think about the New Year's Eve game against Peterborough?
I wish it wasn't against Gavin. Like I just wish it wasn't. That's the only thing is I just,
as far as the atmosphere, I think it should be a very well-attended
I
game.
hope so. I think last year, and the year before, that we're close to sellouts.
Yeah, it's a tradition.
5,000 at an OHL game, like you're talking like Kitchener, and obviously not London. London's an AHL team. But I think it's in the upper atmospheres. It just hasn't happened a lot since Akil Thomas and Jason Robertson. So, it just hasn't happened for so long. But once, like I said, I think that's why a playoff series and a home playoff series where you're guaranteed at least 3 games, well, hopefully, I think that's so big for the city and the team because, those are 3 games where everyone in the city's like, oh man, they're in the playoffs. Okay. Brock is still on, we're a very winter town in St. Catharines. So I think that that's going to change. And then that bleeds into the next season, especially because, whether you want to admit it or not, whether how high Ryan goes in the draft or anything like that, but you're probably penciling Ryan's got to be in the World Junior team next year or get looks.
I think Kevin as well going into his 4th year.
Yeah. Like there's real possibilities of that. You get a spot on the Canadian World Junior team, your OHL franchise is in the dead and center. We literally lived it with Akil Thomas.
Golden
goal, right? Like,
but then unfortunately he was moved right after that.
Yeah, and that's just the reality of the of the situation, right? Like the year before they had to go all in, and I think this year where they are with Ryan and Kevin and Wasslin too, like that's the thing is that Brady's getting next year he's probably a 1st-round pick if he's a point per game player in his rookie season coming into the year next year, right? Like again, we don't know how everything plays out, and you can't just pencil these kids in, but given the Jake O'Brien, for example, like there's not, production wise, it doesn't look like it's going to be that far off. If you're a 16-year-old and you're a point per game player, I would love to know the odds of if you're a point per game player in your 16-year-old season in the OHL, how many don't get drafted or how often they fall out of the 1st round, So just
don't sleep on Max Creed either.
Yeah. We slept on Zada. I'll be honest with you. I'm the first one to admit that like when the central scouting came out, I was like, oh, good. Like, awesome. He, even it was at the end. And now I'm like, man, I don't know how. Because now once you get noticing and he's a point per game player, that changes everything in my opinion because he's such a hard-nosed player.
And we talked about him being like the X factor. I remember you saying that on like our season preview show of like we know Robrick was going to be that high-end point producer. We knew what Galianov would do in a bottom 6 role, but it was almost like what Zada will do will make or break where this team goes. And right now he's showing more of what we had hoped that he would be when he was drafted 5th overall, but he just took a little bit more time and the offensive production wasn't there last year, but he was still growing and learning the league. And now you see him as a physical guy, a guy that's agitating, a guy that plays a 200-foot game. He takes the most face-offs as you talked about on the team. So it's just nice to see everything that Ethan Zada and the coaching staff and the management staff talked about that he brings to the game. We're starting to see it just blossom now, and everybody's starting to put on notice, or he's starting to put everybody on notice that he's a guy to look at when you come to the Meridian Center when you have all these NHL scouts in the building looking at other teams.
It's fantastic, man. Again, like I love the second-tiered, like hard-working guys, and what Robrick has done for us is fantastic. I don't want to say Kevin saved the franchise if there was one player, in all honesty, because of the dark era of the IceDogs last couple of years. Kevin was the lone bright spot. In his rookie season, he was the only reason to go and watch. And last season, you had Robrick and Zada in their rookie season, but there was no one ever talked about Zada. It was like he was almost forgotten. And, that's not fair to him because it's not like he didn't play well. It was just that Ryan broke every rookie record for the IceDogs, and it's not like the franchise doesn't have some incredible alumni. You've got Petrangelo's jersey up behind you. You know what I'm saying? So, like, breaking records as a rookie for the IceDogs, it does mean something. And I think Ethan gets lost in that shuffle that he doesn't get as much, glory or attention. And even this season too, but like I didn't anticipate, like I said 50 points would be the difference between, a really good season. If he can do that, then they're not just an 8 seed, they're much higher. And now I think that if he keeps this up, like, I mentioned this before. Like, it makes some interesting decisions come the trade deadline, but because he gives them just such another option. Like I don't think anyone anticipated this. Other than the coaching staff, because I'm sure that they knew that what was the potential for him, but just from outside pundits, like he's a great faceoff man. He kills penalties, and now he's on the power play. Like, I don't know, man. It's the one thing about the IceDogs this season is that if you look at every other team that is going to compete, they are going to sell their overagers. And we just said that the best case scenario for the IceDogs is if they don't. They've no Van Vliet, no Flores, no Lashko. And we keep them. The issue is that next season we don't have the ammo to go and make those huge trades like Brantford going and getting Leanders, right? There's going to be a hole in net. Not that Charlie Robertson isn't a capable goaltender or that Humphreys and whatnot, but it's not going to be put Flores in and don't even think about it. Because that's really what it's been. Is just put Flores in and we are going to get a chance to win the game. That's literally what it's been for 2 seasons, really. And that's simply not going to be there, right? So you need the ammo and the draft picks to be able to do that, and obviously not moving the overagers because you don't really want to move anyone else. I can't think of any. I would love to go and do the roster analysis of the is it 06s would be the overagers next year?
Yep. No, 05, sorry.
It'd be the 05s are this year, are they not?
No.
I thought it was 05s this year.
Nope. It's 04s. Because Kevin's in 06, so he's still got 2 years left.
Okay, fair enough. So then that would be Alex, I would assume. Asadorian?
Yeah, Asadorian, Wysick would be the guys overage, Robertson. And I think there's a few more as well, but that's a discussion for another day. But I see what you're saying, though, like that they're going to have to make a decision there if Matt Humphreys isn't ready. Because they're still kind of marinating him in the OJHL right now. Is Robertson going to be your guy next year? And then they run into the same issue the following year, where if Robertson ages out, then what's the plan, right? So
exactly right. Like I think that, to be honest, like we play Armchair GM all the time, but like not trading anyone, I'm completely happy with that, right? And I think that going in this year is a mistake simply because the other teams have been preparing for this year. You look at Barrie, and we got a full force look at them. Not that the IceDogs didn't play great against them when they've matched up, but my goodness, they've got some dogs on the back end, right? Like their decor is impressive. Might be one of the best in the league. And I just think that if they go in and they go after Musty or Luchenko or things like that, and they have to trade players that are in the window of them, it'd be great for this season. Super fun. Maybe they get an extra round out of it, but I just, I don't, as a real fan, it'd be like, man, that's tough.
And point of order, 2027, if they get the Memorial Cup bid, if 2027 is a realistic possibility, you need the Wasslins and the Creets around for that time.
And I think that what Kitchener does at the deadline is really going to change things too, because they're in a spot where I don't think they can sell. And Kitchener's could be in a spot where they'll have a good team, but like they need to sell their older players, like just simply because they need the ammo for that Memorial Cup run, right? That Memorial Cup bid, right? So, and if they can't sell because this season has gone so well, then it's like, okay, that makes it real hard in the Memorial Cup year. Like if we get a Memorial Cup, man, that would enter into a different era for the Niagara IceDogs. It just would. Like, you know what I mean? Like it would be, pre Memorial Cup, post Memorial Cup, and it would be just finally get rid of all the negativity around the team and things like that. It would be so big for the city. And, obviously we got into the final 3 for bidding last time and the team wasn't even anywhere close. Now you've got, more than likely 2 first-round picks in the NHL. Kevin's still here. Maybe they go on a lengthy playoff run next year. Before I forget, the one I wanted to bring up for if they were going to trade for someone would be Carter George. 2 extra years. Goalies don't usually get called up to the. When was the last time a drafted NHL goalie got called up to the NHL and stayed? Right.
Yeah.
They almost always get to the overage year. So that'd be 2 years of Carter George after Owen Flores. That would be the only one. But again, that's just playing GM and whatnot. So
Absolutely. There's a lot of possibilities that we can talk about and fantasize about if they do come to fruition. But those are the types of trades I think we'd like to see Niagara make strategically for not just this year, but for the year after and possibly 2027. But we're going to have lots of time to talk about that sort of fun stuff. We're going to take a break on today's show. We're going to come back. We're going to hear from IceDogs head coach Ben Boudreau. We'll talk about the recent lineup returnees, the recent move as well. And as well, looking at the IceDogs player stats from this upcoming weekend and looking ahead to the last two divisional games before they hit the holiday break. So stay right here. We're right back on the Dog Pound Podcast, the official podcast of your Niagara IceDogs, proudly brought to you by Global Pet Foods, where pets are undeniably part of the family. Back after this.
Whether you just brought home a new furry member of the family or would like help finding something new for your picky eater, maybe you've done your research and want to upgrade your pet's nutrition from an entry-level food, the staff at any of the Global Pet Food stores in the Niagara region would love to help you out. Let them show you why our lesser-known premium brands are so much better than highly advertised big corporate brands. The value from the brands we carry is not only visible in the health and vitality in your pet, but also because you won't need to feed as much as with the other brands. Better nutrition from a longer-lasting bag. We hope to see you at one of the following locations across Niagara: 3643 Portage Road in Niagara Falls, 160 Highway 20 in Font Hill, as well as 400 Scott Street and 344 Glendale Avenue in St. Catharines. Global Pet Foods, where pets are undeniably part of the family.
Ollie's Original Sports Bar is your ultimate destination for unbeatable food, drinks, and sports action in Niagara. Whether you're gearing up for a big game, winding down after a day at the office, or just looking for a lively spot to catch up with friends, Ollie's has you covered. Their menu is packed with mouth-watering options, from classic pub favorites to unique chef specials, all served alongside a wide selection of craft beers, cocktails, and daily drink deals. With multiple TVs broadcasting the latest sports events, you won't miss a minute of the action, no matter where you sit. Cully's Original Sports Bar, a proud supporter of Niagara IceDogs hockey. Whether you're gearing up for the game or celebrating a big win, Cully's is the place to be before and after every IceDogs matchup. Check out their menu online at cullys.com. Give them a call at 905-684-1771 or check them out on Facebook, X, or Instagram for more information. Located at 223 St. Paul Street in the heart of downtown St. Catharines, just minutes from the Meridian Center. Open daily Sunday to Thursday till midnight and Friday to Saturday till 2 a.m. for those late night eaters. Cully's, it happens here.
Wild Bill's Auto Repair is your local center for auto maintenance and repair in the Niagara region. Since 2012, Wild Bill's Auto Repair and Body Shop has been helping customers stay safe and confident on the road, knowing their vehicle is in top running condition through the garage's services. Located at 7868 Oakwood Drive in Niagara Falls, the garage started as a tribute to the owner's father, William Robert Hunter, who passed away, continuing the same community spirit and high level of service which customers can expect from him back at Hunter's Auto Repair. Their multi-award-winning auto shop has earned the trust of the Niagara community with its fair treatment of all customers who can feel confident they'll get trustworthy advice and repairs during their visit. Their experienced crew loves meeting new people and looks forward to forming a lasting partnership for the care of your vehicles. To find out more or to book a service, contact them today at 905-358-7868 or wildbillsauto.ca. Wild Bill's Auto Repair, helping customers stay safe and confident on the road since 2012.
Fuel up your day with Gale's Gas Bars. They're your go-to gas station in the Niagara region. Remember, at Gale's, they're not just a gas station, they're a local tradition. Whether you're hitting the road or staying cozy at home, choose Gale's. Gale's Gas Bars provide reliable fuel that keeps you moving. Stop in for quality you can trust and service with a smile. Don't settle for less. Head to Gale's Gas Bars today. Because when it comes to fuel, you're going to Gale's! Learn more at gales.ca.
This is Kevin He.
This is Brady Waslin.
This is Ethan Zader.
It's Owen Flores.
This is the Dog Pound Podcast.
The official podcast of the Niagara IceDogs.
Back on part 2 of today's Dog Pound podcast episode, Barrie, Caputo and Cam Halbert are with you, continuing to discuss the IceDogs 3-0 road trip and outlook on the team as they move into the holiday break, sitting at 29-1-1 on the 24-25 OHL season. Thank you to everybody watching us on the YouTube version. Make sure to hit like, hit subscribe, and smash that bell, and as well to those listening on your favorite on-demand audio platform, thank you very much for doing so. Make sure to give us a follow at Dog Pound Podcast. Stay up to date with all of our live tweets and updates for the Niagara IceDogs and our live coverage as well. So, Cam, before we hit to IceDogs head coach Ben Boudreau's quick weekend wrap-up thoughts, recent moves for the IceDogs, and I've got the last lineup up on the video version on YouTube for you guys following along. They got Matthew Paris back, number 54 Matthew Paris, after only playing 5 games before going down with a lower body injury. Finally came back into the lineup over the weekend, played that first game in North Bay, got a maintenance day in the second game, trying to ease him back in, which unfortunately took Blake Aerosmith out of the lineup that first game when Paris was in. But then we got Paris and Aerosmith together in the lineup in that final game, and now they have 3 right-handed forwards with Paris, Doherty, and Aerosmith on the right side there. You had Lashko, Wasselin up front, Robrick, Zada, Aerosmith, Mike Levin, Asadorian, and Matthew Paris on the third line, Max Crete, Galianov, and Doherty. No changes on the D-core with Nick Frasca and Darcy DeWatcher kind of going in and out there as the extra defenseman, and then they've got 2 extra forwards in Rafik Dayanov and Charlie Hotless at the moment. So no injuries right now for the Niagara IceDogs, which, knock on wood, is a great thing, and we're starting to see everybody back. Asadorian's back, Paris is back. They moved Mason Ray for a 2026 7th-round pick up to Owen Sound to be with his father. We talked about that with Steve Clark in a quick reaction episode as well. So, Cam, what is your kind of outlook on the way the lineup has been structured now, and hopefully, seeing this go forward into the holiday break and coming out of the Christmas break, because they still got some games before that trade deadline looms and where things might look different for the roster?
Yeah, I mean, I think that everything is just kind of falling into place perfectly. In terms of the first line of Wasselin, he, and Lashko, I think that's set it and forget it for now. I don't there has not been a game where Wasselin looked out of place. The only thing that about Wasselin's game so far early on in his career is just that there's been times where he overshot or didn't, missed the big opportunities. We talked about a couple breakaways in one of the games. But his passing ability is just unmatched. I mean, he only has 4 goals on the season and 19 assists.
But his playmaking.
There's going to come a point where, there's going to come a point where he starts scoring. Mm-hmm. And, that adds a whole new dynamic to the IceDogs. And the second line, I think, like I said, we talked about Ethan Zada being the X factor of the season. The fact that there is no way to now take him out of the top 6. And I think that is what, in a perfect world, the IceDogs wanted. Because what that means is that Asadorian is a third-line center. And he is not a third-line center in the OHL on a lot of teams.
Nope.
And he is the perfect player to go up against other teams' bottom 6 because he will outwork almost everyone on the ice. There was a couple plays in his first game back where it was just hustle, 200 feet. It's just absurd. And there isn't very many people on the team that play like that. He plays he gets annoyed when he doesn't have the puck, and he never stops skating. And having him on the third line is fantastic. The one thing I'll be curious about is Paris was a perfect complementary player to the first line, whether it was, I think he was a great fit for Lashko and Kevin because those two demand the puck so much. But because Wasselin's hockey IQ, just seems to be off the charts, that he doesn't demand the puck in terms of his shot. He's clearly a facilitator and okay with that. Mm-hmm. I'm wondering if Paris struggles offensively because on the third line, he'll need to be a driver of offense. And I think that'll come. And once that comes, they have 3 lines, and every night it's going to be really, really fun to watch. Same thing with Levin too. All of those, Levin and Asadorian are both smaller, but they play bigger, and they're annoying to go up against. And Paris is just sneaky. I remember that 5-point game last year. Mm-hmm. He led the team in scoring in the first month of the season. So
it might take him a little bit to get back into it, but
I agree. But the real wild card right now is Aerosmith, because it reminds me a lot of Paris last year, where it was a kind of below the radar OHL trade. It's not someone that's going to have NHL drafted prowess or anything like that, right? But and again, it looked like the IceDogs overpaid in terms of prospects and whatnot. But this is a player. I'll give you a perfect example of players like this. Players that in the NHL, when they are stuck on the third or fourth line behind the studs because they can't, like, the team talent dictates that they can't play higher in the lineup. And that happens a lot, but so they don't get the opportunity. But then they do get the opportunity. You finally get to see what that player is. So the Vegas Golden Knights in their first season, that was a team full of guys that should have been first and second liners on teams that they get to. William Karlsson, for example, couldn't make the second line in Columbus. They put him on the first line in Vegas with good players, and he had a career year and turned it into salvaged his career. Players like that, players like Aerosmith, where now they get the opportunity to show their talents in more role because he wasn't going to crack the top 6 in London. That's just London's team is absurd. So that being said, now he gets the opportunity and he's cashing in. Like, he's again just he plays with an edge too. Him and Zada remind me a lot of each other. They're very when they hit, you know.
They're
and
heavy.
It's not like it's not like they're just finishing checks and whatnot. Like, when they decide to hit someone, they really hit someone. So he's been a great pickup. 7 points in 7 games. You know, again, we'll see how it goes the rest of the season, but he looks like he has a little bit of an offensive flair, and credit to the IceDogs management for noticing or realizing we needed a right-handed shot, and now we have them all back, and the lines are just rolling. So it's really nice to see. And the decor, man, we never talk about the decor. Great thing though.
They're just steady.
They're literally the exact same all year long, and just, you know, Flores gets all the love because he makes 50 saves in a night, but 40 of those shots are from the outside. You know, it's not all like it was last year where it's just 70 minutes in the Niagara zone. It's, you know, the IceDogs decor has just been so steady, and it's something that we should appreciate more of. But again, when it comes to D-man, not talking about them is a good thing as well.
No, they've been really good in that sense, and Virgilio got the last laugh up there, and Sue playing against his old team. Van Vliet playing against his old Sudbury mates as well, so it was just an all-around good weekend. But yeah, you talk about that, the Aerosmith, Zada, and Rubric line, the all 2007-born line, they were incredible, especially yesterday against Sudbury. 5 points for Zada, 3 points for Aerosmith, 3 points for Rubric. It was just really nice to see how they complement each other so well, and we've seen them go up against some top-end lines, and they're kind of going through a little bit of growing pains those first few games, trying to feel everything out. And again, they're not seeing maybe the top-end matchups that the Wassland and Loshko line are seeing, but they have continued to just be the offensive drivers of the team, and you see it with this weekend. We might as well kind of start talking about that. Ethan Zada, 9 points in the 3 games, 5 goals, 4 assists. He was our player of the week this week, if you saw on our social media account. Ryan Rubric, 4 goals, 5 assists in the 3 games. Aerosmith, 1 goal and 4 assists in only 2 games because he missed the 1 game against the Sioux Greyhounds. So that whole line, if you look at it, is combined, you know, for over 20 points between the 3 of them in those 3 games, which is pretty incredible. And again, minus 1 game for Aerosmith. So the fact that all 3 of those guys are really producing on that second line, you can see why the IceDogs are having such success, and why Ben Boudreau talks about them scoring 21 goals in the Northern road trip as opposed to 21 against. So if we're not talking about Owen Flores stealing them games, I mean, you talk about this line right now, it's definitely one of the main reasons that they're having the success that they are.
Well, absolutely. And the big thing about 20 points in 3 games from the second line is the fact that the first line, Loshko has 6 points in 3 games. Kevin had 8 in 3 games. You know, like it's not just the first line or not just the second line, because there's been a lot of nights where it's only one line that performs. Now that line does great. Like, you know what I mean? It seemed we went through a lot of the game recaps, specifically at home maybe, where it wasn't multiple lines. It was literally one line. I mean, there was a game where Mason Ray was on the third line, and the third line was the only line that showed up. You know, or they had the most impactful game, right? And
or
now
when
you're seeing
Kevin takes over.
Or Kevin takes over, or Ryan saved the game. Right? You know what I mean? It was always one of those, and now you're seeing it's like, man, 2 lines is just really fun. You know, like it's just such a stark difference, and it's tough because I think we're entering into the, you know, here around hockey, not just in the OHL, but hockey in general, like January and February, specifically after the trade deadline, it's just awfully tough to get through because, you know, these kids play 68 games. There's a reason why it's such a demanding season. It's 3-3s sometimes, and the IceDogs have a lot of 3-3s, by the way. I'm assuming that every team has roughly the same, but my goodness, so far, I think they've already played 3 of those. And that being said, they've got a 7-game road trip, and then they've got to get through to the playoffs. And It'll be interesting to see how they deal with, like, let's say Barrie or Oshawa kind of pull away, right? I think that'd be like the worst case scenario. Because if they have that carrot of like first in the Eastern Conference somehow, right? Like you can get up for that, but it's showing up on a Thursday in February where you're locked into a playoff spot, you're 15, 20 points up on a playoff spot, and you just got to get through the season of the playoffs, right? And like that's what'll be interesting to see how this team does. And then it's just about avoiding injury, because we've seen that like one injury now, it's not going to be devastating. I'll say that. I don't think it'll be devastating if knock on wood, right? I don't know if one player goes out, the entire season's done. There's an argument, maybe Flores, right? But I don't at this point. I don't know what could hurt him. Again, knock on wood. Just given the fact that I think he's made out of rubber. So, but that being said, man, like the team's in a really good spot, and I'm excited to get through to Christmas break, and then they get back after it afterwards.
Yeah, Flores has started 18 of the last 19 games. He finally got a break up there in the Sioux, and Charlie Robertson played well.
Watching that game, I had a double take. I was like, is that really not? Is that 77 in net?
Yeah, and then he came back in the Sudbury game. So 18 of the last 19 for Owen Flores in the net. Pretty incredible when you look at his statistics and how many shots that he's faced. Has just been incredible. He leads the league as far as saves in the Ontario Hockey League because he's been playing so much as well. But the IceDogs, I wanted to say one thing. The IceDogs are keeping a lot of the shots to the outside as of late. So like even though they're getting outshot in games, it's almost like it's
not breakaways.
No, it's the coaching staff trying to limit those A+ scoring opportunities in that home plate area, keeping the shots to the outside where Flores can see them and keeping them locked in the zone. So even though they have been outshot more times than not, I think that's kind of a strategic way to make sure that the high danger scoring opportunities are limited in that sense.
My favorite stat about to wrap this up, especially and bring it back about how we started about Ethan Zada, the plus minus leader. He second place on the team is 11, Van Vliet and Blair with 10, and then Robrick has 9 is a plus 9. Ethan Zada is a plus 17.
Wow.
I mean, like that's enough of a difference. He far and away leads the plus minus on the team, and now he's a point per game player. It just goes to kind of show plus minus is a very subjective stat, but we talk about how Zada was always pretty good defensively, and it's just I mean that's telling. And why it's so fun about him kind of exploding offensively, because he's not just a one-dimensional player. So anyways,
as we wrap up the rest of the weekend, 21 goals, 10 against. Face-off wins 96-109 was the difference there. Shots on net, they were 102 for, 126 against, but again, a lot of the shots from the opposition from the outside. Power play, they were 4 for 12. On the PK, they were 11 of 12, so that was a big difference on the weekend. Their penalty kill was almost perfect, going 11 of 12, so that's encouraging to see from a team that has one of the lower-ranked penalty kills in the league. So I think that's a credit to what they're trying to do defensively. They even killed off a 2-minute 5-on-3 for Sudbury, so you're starting to see the defensive part of it come together as a team unit as far as on the penalty kill, and that's something they're going to need to do because you can't be near the bottom of the league in the penalty kill if you want to be a solid playoff team. So as far as other contributors for the week, Kevin He, as you mentioned, had 8 points. Loshko had 6, including 4 goals. Mike Levin had a goal and an assist. Blair Scott chipped in with a 3-point night, by the way. A goal and 2 assists. His first goal as a member of the IceDogs with 2 assists. He had a heck of a game up there in Sioux. Asadorian with a goal and 2 assists. Brody with a goal and 2 assists. Wasslin with 2 assists. So just an incredible... that's 10 players, if I count correctly. 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, 10 players with at least 2 points on the weekend, and 21 goals for to 10 against. It was just, you couldn't have asked for a better northern road trip, which is always a gauntlet going up there to North Bay, Sudbury, and Sioux at this time of year. 3 games and 4 nights, and they come away with 3 victories. It was, from what they went through last year going up north, it was, night and day difference, and it's just nice to see them come back with a lot of confidence and swag going into 2 big divisional games.
No, absolutely. I think this will be a really fun game in Barrie to watch. And they're without Bo Akey and Cole Baudouin, correct?
Yeah, and that's the other thing too, is like some of these teams are missing some players. You look at Brampton, they're going to be missing their top guns. So these are the games that Niagara should take advantage of, because these are the games down the stretch when you look back on it in March that you should have picked up 2 points against a very undermanned lineup, and maybe some of the teams that have picked up points on the IceDogs with their undermanned lineups when Kevin He was suspended and when Paris and Asadorian were all out. So I look at this and say they need to pick up 4 points here to really make make a statement here that, when you do get into those other games in February and March against these teams, that you have the confidence that you can go up there and take it to them.
Yeah, and I think just ending the Christmas break on a 5-game heater would be pretty incredible. Go into the break and then go out to Saginaw. Saginaw and Flint are, Flint's been battling this season, and they obviously beat us at home with probably the most disappointing game that we've had. Even the Erie game wasn't as disappointing simply because it was all in the third period. Like, that game was close, but the Flint game was it was probably their worst game of the season. So it'd be nice to see them come back after a nice break on a high and see what they can do there.
We'll quickly get to IceDogs head coach Ben Boudreau's post-weekend thoughts on our Inside the Coaches Room, brought to you by the Niagara Employment Help Center, helping people find work in Niagara since 1983. Check out their up-to-date job board at ehc.on.ca to find your next work opportunity today. Let's hear what the IceDogs head coach had to say with a good friend of the show, Bill Podgers from BPSN, who was able to catch up with Ben Boudreau following the road trip up in Sudbury, Sioux, and North Bay.
Yeah, listen, you had Rubrek the other night stand on his head and have a great game. Tonight it was Zada, and how good was he today?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like our offense is coming in spades. I mean, 21 goals for. The difference a year makes is incredible, where I think our northern road trip last year, we had 21 goals scored against us in 3 games, and this year we're scoring 21 goals for, which I find absolutely incredible. And Ethan Zada had 9 points over the last 3 games. Same thing with Ryan Rubrick. I mean, these kids are 17 years old and just coming into their own. But I think the most impressive stat for Ethan Zada tonight was that he was +5.
I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, team total to +18, which leads the team as a 17-year-old. We wake up tied for first place in the Eastern Conference, and now he's over a point a game. And what I think you have, and Ethan Zada is a motivated kid that showed up preseason draft rankings as a W, and now what he's done has really been a driving force and turning this team around into a real contender, over a point a game, to a defensive two-way center that can produce. I mean, it's pretty attractive. So, he's coming into his own at the absolute right time, and as long as it's tough to put up 5 points every game, but if he can be consistent in the way he plays, it's going to come naturally to him.
Absolutely. And I mean, it's tough to win 3 road games in a row, especially up north like that. I mean, you just overall, you got to be thrilled with that road trip.
Oh, this is incredible. This is the first time in the IceDogs organization history we actually took all 3 games up there. So between franchise record start and, doing a lot of firsts, taking our first 3 games up north, 20 wins before Christmas. All our big guys are producing. I mean, Lasko had 6 points over the weekend. Kevin He, had a really big weekend. Ryan Rubrick, Ethan Zada. I mean, Blake Aerosmith only played 2 games but had 5 points. And our big guys really came through to play, and it didn't matter which goalie we put in. They had fantastic performances. It's a lot of fun right now to be a Niagara IceDog.
Absolutely, and while you can't get 2 up when you win or 2 down when you lose, I mean, what's the message now? That just keep going type thing, and not worry about what's happened, because as good as it is, it doesn't matter when you play again on Thursday, right?
We got a battle for first place on Thursday.
Right.
This is going to be a huge measuring stick to where we are compared to where we think we are. And we're 5-0-1 in our last 6 games. It's a great accomplishment, but we have 2 games to close out an excellent first half, and we want to close it out the right way. And Brampton is going to be losing players. Barrie is a great team in their own right. So we're going to take 2 practice days to make sure we finish the season off on a right note.
There was IceDogs head coach Ben Boudreau on Inside the Coaches Room, brought to you by the Niagara Employment Help Center. Thank you once again to Bill Podgers from BPSN for providing us with that post-game audio that we weren't able to catch up with Ben after the road trip, but that's all good. We'll catch up with him at practice this week. But Cam, quick thoughts on there about what the IceDogs head coach had to say.
I'm glad that he highlighted all the players that have stepped up big, and he mentioned that the road trip last year they probably gave up 21 goals, and it's just such a crazy turnaround. Ben took over in the in the middle of, or not even the middle, like kind of the early November, I believe, of last year, right? And it always felt like, because he didn't have the training camp at the full season, he was just trying to hold on for dear life. in terms of like a playoff spot and things like that, an undermanned roster. And it just goes to show the whole year. Like we talked about that going into this year, that he just offers it feels much more stable, because he knows he's not going anywhere, and he's got a full year to build his team and what he wants. And it's gone so well. And, I love that he shouted out Aerosmith only playing the 2 games. He had 5 points. Like he's a very good coach when it comes to criticizing and giving props to his players as well in the right moments. He pushes the right buttons, it seems. And it's just been fun watching the IceDogs this year because of that.
And he talked about this being the first time that they've actually swept that northern road trip, which is incredible. First time in franchise history that they've won the 3 games up there in Sault Sudbury and North Bay. Pretty incredible to think about. And then when Bill asked him about, looking forward to this week, and he talked about, those 2 teams that there's a battle for first place with Barrie, and it's very meaningful. This might be the most meaningful game the IceDogs have played in December, probably since 2018, 2019.
Yeah.
So this is a very big game, not only for the division, but for the franchise as well at this moment.
It definitely feels like if they were to lose against Barrie, that is just kind of, they're not going to win the division. Like as stupid as that sounds, because it's just 1 game in December, right? But the way that the last game went against Barrie, where they just kind of inflicted their will or did what they wanted to do, and they just kind of, out-muscled everyone. They just kind of bullied the team. And the IceDogs had a decent effort and performance. It's just like, again, when rubber meets the road, talent usually wins out, and the IceDogs have a great team this year. But Barrie, again, just further along in their cycle. And the IceDogs win this, and it's like, man, maybe they could win the division. I still think it's going to be very difficult to win the conference based on just Oshawa and Barrie. You still have Kingston, too. I feel like Kingston's just forgotten about this season.
And don't forget about Brantford either.
Yeah, exactly. Brantford's the real one that's Brampton's start was in the Eastern Conference is by far the most surprising thing of the year, because they were the number 1 ranked team in the country going into the season.
Yep.
And they just haven't gotten going. But Brantford is another team that, like, very surprising. They had such a slow start, and now they're starting to figure it out
and get everybody back in the next couple of weeks.
I think that soon, like, you're seeing North Bay finally. I think the start of the season when North Bay was doing well was like, they can't keep getting away with this, Yep. But now they've kind of fallen back a little bit, and I think that, Peterborough, shout out to Peterborough. They've got points in 7 of the last 10 games.
They're playing better.
Yeah, much better, and it's good. It's better when Peterborough is good. They're such a historic franchise, right? So it's tough to see a team go, winless for the first 20 games of the season. Like, you don't want that. And the IceDogs fans have been there, but, like, it wasn't even that bad when the IceDogs were in their rough stretch, right? So, those teams behind them are going to start to climb. But yeah, you'll have Ottawa and Sudbury probably level out and fall into the 6 through 8 seed. And I'm just hoping the IceDogs can get a home ice playoff advantage. That's like what I talked about a couple weeks ago. Is that at this point the expectation is I would just love to see a home playoff round.
Final thoughts, Cam. I mean, Ryan Rubrick leads the team, 47 points in 31 games. Kevin He, 43 and 29. You've got Loshko with 37. You've got Zada with 33 and 31. So you've got 4 players over a point a game right now, and Waslin's not far behind because he missed those games because he was away at the U17. So he's basically at a point a game, and you look at that. I mean, that's 5 players essentially at a point a game. It's going to be an exciting, kind of finish to this rest of this road trip, the rest of 2024, and as they go into 2025, and that trade deadline looms, and just exciting times for the IceDogs, as they hit down the stretch here, that they have some really exciting players, and even the ones we don't talk about all the time that are just steady on the back end. It's just a lot better of an atmosphere as we've hit Christmas for the first time, with some optimism compared to the last 4 seasons or so. So it's nice to have some hopeful wishes maybe come true on Christmas this year.
No, absolutely. I think that it's, we talked about this all season that, like, the first month of the season was so surprising. It was just like enjoying the ride and being so stunned. And now we're in that, okay, they have a chance to win every night. And when they don't, it's like, man, what? It's such a stark difference in what we had. I think that the emergence of Zada is such a fun storyline. It's not just Robrick and it's not just Kevin He, right? You've got more players, and Wasslin leading the league in rookies, in my opinion. Like, I just don't think that even we don't mention that enough. The fact that he's leading rookies, he fell to fourth, remember? Like, there was a reason why everyone in the OHL that covered it was like, wow, the Ice Dogs managed to get Wasselin when they got not, the odds to win the lottery when you're 1 through 4 in the OHL are a little bit different than the NHL. It's absurd that they went from first overall pick to fourth, but but there was a real argument that Wasselin could have gone first, And Belchez, with the start he had, it was like, oh my goodness, right? Wassel's got more points than him. And especially since the return from the under-17s. He's really performed. And now he's on the first line, and it looks like it fits. It's just fun. It's fun in Niagara, and I can't wait for the second half of the season, man.
Yeah, absolutely, and let's hope the barn is packed for the New Year's Eve game at the Meridian Center against the Peterborough Pete's. A great tradition there in Niagara with the New Year's Eve game. Note the start time 6 p.m. so that everybody can get out and do what they got to do for New Year's Eve. But for Cam Halbert, my name is Barrie Caputo. That's going to wrap up another episode of the Dog Pound Podcast right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network, the official podcast of your Niagara IceDogs. Proudly brought to you by Global Pet Foods, where pets are undeniably part of the family in all 4 of their great Niagara region locations. Thanks to everybody listening, our loyal listeners in video and on our audio platforms as well. Merry Christmas to you and yours. Happy holidays, and we'll talk to you again very soon.
You're listening to the Armchair GM Sports Network.